I get a lot of questions when I am either when I post or when we launch a podcast. So I thought that this week we'd do something different. I will be taking live questions about divorce and divorce recovery, and we'll be answering them live. And then, having this kind of just impromptu discussion about it. And then we'll be using this for the podcast this week. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Recovering Cinderella. My name is Carrie Lauderdale Olson. I am also a master certified life coach specializing in helping women move forward and create new lives they love after divorce. The first time I've tried this, so we're going to see how this goes. Some of the Recovering Cinderella stories we've done so far have included, Ada was one of our first stories. She's out of Canada, and she just had an incredible story of inspiration, how she basically she was pregnant, she had a toddler, and was homeless and, trying to go through a divorce and figure out how to support herself and her children. We've heard from women who have created incredible new lives. I'm wearing my glasses so I can see tonight because I don't have my current contact prescription, so you get to see the lights of the ring light in my eyes. But it's just really inspiring to hear how these women have gone through their divorces, and when they thought that their life was ending, it was actually just the beginning. And that's what Recovering Cinderella is all about. So do we have any questions? I am posting on Facebook because it didn't work to go live on both, which was my plan. So go ahead and type in any questions you may have. I'm going to kind of scroll up here a little bit. Are there any topics that you guys are interested in talking about, or that you have challenges with, or that you've struggled with when you're going through your divorce? Or if you've been through your divorce, what helped you the most? It's interesting that each divorce story is as unique as the people telling it. And it's always interesting when I hear people talk about what got them through and the things that helped them more than anything else. Okay, so here's one question that came up. How do I know when it's time to date after divorce? So this is probably the most popular question that I get from women going through a divorce, or women that have recently been divorced, trying to figure out when is the right time to date. So there is no set rule. When you are trying to decide when you're ready to date, it's your personal choice. I know there's been a lot of talk over the years about, well, if you have been married X number of years, then you need to wait X number of months or years before you start dating. And what I always tell women is that it isn't so much about the time frame as it is about your mental health. So a lot of when you get ready to date after divorce depends on, whenever you go through a divorce, it seems like there was always one person that was more ready than the other in the divorce. One person that's thought about it longer, and that's not 100% of the time, but a lot of times there's usually one person that is further along in the process than the other. So depending on which of those people you were, it will also help determine when you are ready to date. If you've been thinking about divorce for a really, really long time, and your divorce is finally going through, and you're excited and you're ready to move forward, then you might jump right into dating. If you're someone who was completely blindsided by the idea of divorce, and all of a sudden, you didn't have any clue that it was coming, and you get served with divorce papers, it's probably going to take you quite a bit longer to be ready to date. Dating is all about making sure that you've healed from the hurts of your marriage and your divorce, and figuring out who you are as this new person after your divorce before you jump into dating. So lots of people will go through a divorce and think that the answer to healing from a divorce is to jump right into dating and get into another relationship with somebody else. And a lot of times when you're still in that chaos of emotion, you will attract chaos. So the person that you will attract to you will also be in chaos in their lives. And while the divorce rate for first marriages is close to 50%, it's actually statistically they expect the numbers to go up with COVID and quarantining and all of that. But the divorce rate for second marriages is, I believe, a little over 60%, and third marriages is even higher. And so if you don't take the time to heal and make sure that you are happy with your life and who you are, then it's very hard for you to go out and find somebody to date and have a healthy relationship if you're not healthy and in a good place yourself. So while there's no set time period, it's more about where you're at in your personal growth, where you are in your personal development, and how much healing you've done on your own. So great question. Let me see if we have any more coming up here. Hi, Rachel. Thanks for joining. We're just talking about key questions or issues or things as you're going through your divorce that you would like to talk about tonight. Any key topics? We just kind of covered dating after divorce a little bit. That seems to be a hot topic. One of the other topics that I often get, and it has come up on my DMs, is about forgiving your ex. So when you have been in a relationship that, one spouse or the other has done a tremendous amount of hurt, and in any marriage that ends in divorce, there's hurt. And so, oftentimes if you have children together, or if you are, hi Tammy, thanks for joining. If you are in, this divorce situation, and there might be a lot of anger and sometimes even hatred and all of these feelings that are so intense toward your ex, how do you deal with that? And this is something that I have personally had to really, really work on for many, many years. And sometimes it still rears its ugly head. But it's really all about forgiveness is really not for the other person. It's for you. So getting yourself to a place where you're able to not condone what the other person has done to hurt you, or to, say that those things are okay, because that's not what you're doing. But forgiveness is more for you, and basically for you to let go of any of those feelings that you have, because you're carrying them around. I've heard it said, and you might have heard this before, is, not forgiving someone is equivalent to drinking poison and expecting it to hurt them, because it only hurts you. It's you that carry that around. And so letting go of that hurt and that anger can take a lot of time. It can take therapy. It can take a lot of work to let go of that. But it is something that can be done with time and patience. But it is definitely something that makes you happier in the long run. So other questions that we have coming up. If you have not listened to the podcast, it is the Recovering Cinderella podcast. You can find it on recoveringcinderella.com. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, Google. You can even find it on Alexa. So each week, it's all about stories of hope and inspiration from women who have been through divorce, for women going through it. And each week, it's a real recovering Cinderella who tells her story of hope and inspiration and how she rebuilt her life. So one of the other questions that came up is, read this here. So I don't even know how to start rebuilding my life. I've gone through my divorce, and everybody talks about this great life, but how do you go about building that new life? So one of the things I tell people is, when you go through a divorce, you are not the same person that you were before you got married. You're not the same woman that you are when you're married. You're a new woman who has evolved from who you were before and who you were when you were married to who you are now. And so a big part of kind of evolving is figuring out who this new woman is. What does she like to do? What does she want in her life? What are her dreams for her life? So one of the things I do is, as a master certified life coach, I actually work with women to help figure out what they really want out of their life and who they are now. Who is this new woman after divorce? And so, it takes time. And a lot of times when you're going through a divorce, you're so focused on getting through the divorce that you don't even think about who you are in the process. You're just focused on survival mode. You're just focused on getting through that divorce. So part of the healing process is actually figuring out who you are and creating a dream for you, because the chapter that ended with your marriage isn't the end of your life. It's just the end of a chapter. So you have many more chapters to write, beautiful. And that's what I help women do, is help write those new chapters, help figure out who they are after their divorce and where they want their lives to go, and then help create a plan for them to get there and create this new life that has no boundaries. You can do anything you want. So that is one of the things that I enjoy doing, is helping women move forward after their divorce and create these new lives that they love. So other questions. Let's see here. Co-parenting with your ex. Okay. So co-parenting can be a really great thing, or it can be a really challenging thing. The number one thing that you have to remember about co-parenting is that it's not about you and it's not about your ex, it's about your children. And so the best thing that you can possibly do is try to keep that in mind at all times. If you have a very divisive situation where you are not able to communicate on a regular basis, there are a lot of parenting apps out there now, which I wish they had been out there when I was going through my divorce, where you don't even have to directly communicate with your ex. You can actually put in visitation schedules, you can put in school schedule and everything into these apps to where it limits the friction that occurs and the interaction that has to occur with your ex. So I highly recommend, if you are having an issue with your ex and co-parenting and it's a divisive situation, then going in and getting an app and putting everything and taking out taking the emotion out of it. So as you are, trying to co-parent, and when your emotions get high, the number one thing to remember is this in the best interest of my child or my children? So keep that in mind when your ex is pushing your buttons, or when they're being irrational, or all of the things that you find yourself getting in that place of anger and really getting frustrated and bringing back all of the hurts and the anger from your marriage and subsequent divorce. So one of the things that you can do is, like I said, take the emotion out of it, and then also really ask yourself, is this in the best interest of my child or children? And when you use that filter, it kind of helps you to take a step back and realize that it doesn't matter if they're pushing buttons. Don't let them push the buttons. You don't have to let them push your buttons anymore. That's part of being divorced. It's one of the great things about being divorced. So other questions about divorce or divorce recovery tonight. That's what we're talking about tonight for the Recovering Cinderella podcast. Questions about recovering after divorce, moving forward after your divorce, things that you're struggling with in your divorce. Let's see if I put anything else on here. Thanks for joining, guys. So if you haven't listened to the podcast, it is really, really helpful to hear women talk about, one of the questions that I ask every woman on the podcast is, what is one thing that you wish you had known when you were going through your divorce? And the answers that come out of those podcast sessions are really, really powerful. One of the most recent podcasts that I did she said that she learned how to be, it was Kara, and she said she learned how to be self-full and realized she wasn't being selfish by doing that. And I think that that is one of the things, it's one of the gifts of divorce, is you get to actually focus on yourself for a change and put all of that effort and energy that you used to give so freely to someone else to yourself. And it is all about self-care and self-awareness and being mindful about treating yourself and giving yourself that love and self-care. And so that is one of the most important things that you can do as you're going through a divorce. So if you haven't listened to the podcast, I encourage you to go out and listen. We've got about 10 episodes out there now, all talking with different women. The double episode that we had was called A Tale of Two Cinderellas, and that is actually my personal story of going through 2 divorces. Let's see. Angie is asking, I'm trying to learn how to put that energy to myself, and you totally lost yourself. Angie, that is the number one thing I hear from women all the time, is that they lost themselves in their divorce. And we were just talking earlier about how, you know, you tend to give everything to everyone else. And as women, we tend to do that. We give and give and give and give. And when you lose your marriage, or when your marriage ends, you're lost, because you're not the same woman you were before you got married. You're not the same woman you were when you were married. And all of that love that you poured out on someone else, now you don't know what to do with yourself. You don't even know who you are anymore. And so part of the divorce recovery process is figuring out who you are now. Who is this woman who you used to know her way back when, and then all of these different things have happened in your life and they've changed you. You're still in there, but you've evolved and grown into this new person. And so it takes mindfulness, it takes self-care, and giving yourself permission to put yourself first. Hi, Marcy. Marcy says she loves the podcast. It's been super helpful to hear positive stories of women. There we go. We're back. We had a call. Marcy, thank you. I'm glad to hear that it helps. This is a passion project for me, and I love hearing the stories as well. These women are so inspirational, and they're from all over the world. And each week I'm moved each week by their stories and what they've overcome. If you guys have been through your own divorce and you have advice to give to women, or you have your own recovering Cinderella story, you can actually apply to be on the podcast at recoveringcinderella.com. So there is an application process to go through. You can submit your application, and I'm really excited to keep telling these stories because I think they're powerful. And the number one thing, I keep saying number one thing, there's several number one things, but another common thing that I hear from women is that they feel so alone. When they're going through a divorce, they feel alone, and they feel like nobody's ever been through what they're going through, and nobody understands what they've been through. And in telling these stories, I think that while each story is unique, someone out there can identify with some piece of that story, and it makes them realize that they're not alone. And that if this person can get through it, then they can get through it too. And that's really what the intent of the podcast is to really give hope and inspiration to all of these women out there that are, really, really trying to get through this and realize that they're not alone and that there are other people that understand. Angie says, I'm really trying to forgive him and myself, really addressing. Okay, so he committed adultery and is playing the victim. It's hard to admit when we've done something wrong, and it's a lot easier to blame it on someone else. Because if we admit what we've done wrong, then we have to look in the mirror. And that's really hard for a lot of people to do. So it's a lot easier to act hurt and play the victim and blame someone else for our own mistakes. So what you can't fix him, and you can't change what happened. The only thing that you can control is how you react to the situation. So you can choose to forgive him, but that doesn't mean that you accept his behavior or whatever he did was okay with you. It just means that you're not going to let it hurt you anymore. And so that takes time. A lot of times it takes therapy or working with a life coach, which is what I do, is I work with women to help move past those type of things. But it is all about not letting him choose, cause you to react a certain way. You control how you react. You control whether he gets to play a victim with you or not, because you don't have to listen to it anymore. It's not your place to listen to his story anymore. So, okay, so you have young kids and trying to deal with all that, and with the kids, it is hard. It is absolutely hard. As a mom of 3 sons, when I went through my divorce, 15 years later, the biggest guilt I still have is that I don't have that family for my sons. And they were young at the time, and it was very, very hard to realize that family unit that we had was no longer together. And so it is hard to deal with that, but also understand that kids are smarter than you think, and they pick up on things. And it was years later, when my sons were grown, that they actually told me that they realized how much happier their dad and I were separately. Like we were much happier people separately. And as kids get older, they see that. Because if you're in a miserable situation, especially if one spouse is cheating, then you don't want to, everyone knows, whether they understand it or not, even at a young age, that the situation's not good. And then that anger and that resentment and that bitterness all build up, and then the home situation is not good. So your kids will, as they grow up, the best gift that you can give them is being healthy and moving forward and creating this new life for yourself, and a happy one. And that is the best gift that you can give your kids. Don't spend any more time worrying or wasting time on your ex-husband and what he's doing and whether he's a martyr or not, or a victim, because he doesn't deserve any more of your time or energy. Focus all your energy on yourself and your kids and create a new life, and that is the best possible thing that you can do for your kids and for yourself. Thanks, Angie, for chiming in. Anybody else have a question or topic that they want to talk about? So again, the Recovering Cinderella podcast is every Friday. We release a new episode, and it is stories of hope and inspiration. You're welcome, Angie. Stories of hope and inspiration from women who have been through divorce, for women going through it. I am a master certified life coach, specializing in helping women move forward after divorce. And so if that is something you're interested in, I have both one-on-one coaching as well as group classes. If you have not joined my Facebook support group, I do have an online Facebook support group at Recovering Cinderella. It is the Recovering Cinderella Divorce and Humor Support Group. And there's women in there that support women who have been divorced a while, women who are going through divorces, and love to see women lifting other women up and supporting them through this process. So I think we are about wrapping up. We've been on about 25 minutes. Thank you guys for joining. You can always DM me if you have a question or if there's a topic that you would like to see addressed in future episodes. And just keep moving forward, beautiful. Your divorce was not the end of your chapter or the end of your life. It was just one chapter, and the next chapter is going to be even better than the last. Have a great night.